Hi,
Hi,
nice to see you.
good to see you, Michal. Good morning.
Good morning.
The only intention I can identify is that people will be happy and cease suffering. Obviously, some suffering, like a stomachache or poverty, is there. But the sort of neurotic suffering, this sort of the getting upset about the situation that it shouldn't be like this. That's where it starts. Wanting a reality different from what it is. That's where the neurotic suffering seems to start, what the Buddhists call samsara.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I want to talk about, because I feel very, I've always thought of myself as a very patient sort of person, but so many little things irritate me. And we've done a little bit of work, so I'm aware of kind of this letting go and mindfulness and understanding what's happening around me. And it's made me very aware, our discussions in the past, about these little annoyances, especially in Israel, that seem to happen, even on my drive over here. So I wanted to talk about what I know what I need to do, but I wanted to have you remind me about how to, I know there's nothing to do, but how do I get away from that daily neurotic irritability that I think all of us go through?
Big questions.
Big questions, a lot of questions.
Comprehensive question.
Right.
Is the irritability accessible now? Can you touch that feeling in you now, or is it absent at this moment?
No, I can feel it now because I drove over here and I hate driving, especially in Israel.
Well, that's a reason.
Okay.
So that's an idea.
Okay.
But what I'm asking you is the feeling is the feeling tangible at the moment, this second, or not? You can only sense it, either it is or it isn't, and it changes all the time.
It's not right now.
So
I'm sitting here, I'm relaxed, I'm not in an environment that's going to irritate me, unless you do.
Who knows? But right now,
I'm not feeling it.
Sensation is tolerably comfortable?
Yeah.
You're within your comfort zone at the moment?
Yes.
So my question is there anything we need to do about it in that case now? Or as an alternative, and you may have other alternatives, but I'm offering you two alternatives at the moment which occur to me. It doesn't mean to say there's anything essential about them. But either there's a problem right now, which there doesn't seem to be, from what I understand from you, and I don't feel a particular problem. I'm reasonably comfortable as well. So the question is there anything we need to do about it now, which would seem to be not at the moment? Mm-hmm. Or can we leave it as an open file for the moment, and then if something comes up, if something arises, either in you or in me, then like two responsible adults wanting people to be as happy as possible, then we'll address that if and when it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And if it does, we'll address it. We may or may not have a solution. But from this point of view, what I call the unconditioned mind, it is not possible to access or to do anything about historical issues because they're not happening. They're there maybe as a background which influences the way you are and the way you behave. Certainly history seems to be a big factor. But I can't deal with a problem which is only memory because it's not here. The memory's here. Maybe it's an uncomfortable memory, maybe there isn't, of driving over here and maybe irritation in the traffic. But that's a memory. So we can deal with the memory maybe and maybe not. But the actual incident, the actual drivers that behaved badly or whatever, or the irritation you felt then, isn't there now. So it is impossible to solve a problem that doesn't exist. A problem that does exist, maybe there's a solution, complete or partial, and maybe there isn't. A problem that doesn't exist now, Nobody's ever solved a problem that doesn't exist. And a future problem is equally just a sort of fantasy and expectation. So your irritation in the traffic, which I'm sure was very real when it happened, I'm suggesting to you that at this moment, it appears as a memory and no more. So we can look at the memory if it's there, but I'm not sure what you do with the memory, it's just there.
But I feel that the memory is part of becomes part of my body, my cells, my being. So when I said it, I don't think the problem is here now, I may have said that, I may have not meant that in a way. I'm not in traffic is what I meant right now. But I feel this sense that it lingers. It changes all of a sudden who I am. And it stays in my cells, in my organs, in my whatever. And it's stored there, which is the problem. It's stored day after day after day. And I think that's why it's there every day when I walk out the door or even in my house, you know. I hate cleaning. That bothers me.
Do you need to clean anything this moment?
No, your house is very neat.
So is your, thank you. Is this, is this sense of annoyance of not wanting to clean, is this a problem right now or not?
No, it's not right now, but I really have the sense that my being is so influenced by what happened yesterday and the day before that my body absorbs those irritations, and that's how I live my life. And I don't want to live my life that way.
Right. So what I'm offering you here is the possibility, if it makes sense to you, of learning how to live well by living well now. So then we're not involved in explanations too much, which anyway for me are somewhat dubious, whether it's yours or mine. But rather, we're practicing right now living well. How is that? Well, relating to what is and not relating to what isn't. Because there's nothing we need to do about it. So if suddenly, something is dirty here and you need to clean it and you don't want to, so then the irritation might be there, and then we can look at that. Or if, for example, it's unlikely a driver is going to bother us right now, unless, maybe a motorbike will go past with a couple of boys on it and make some noise. But right now, we can only deal, it seems to me, with what's happening now. The memories exist, certainly, and highly influenced by your past, obviously, and the way your personality responds and your mental and physical habits, certainly. And thoughts about the future very much influence you. You might be worried about money issues, relationship issues, other issues, children. But right now, the things we can, this moment is possibly the only place we can actually act. I can't act yesterday, now.
Okay.
I can't act tomorrow, now. Maybe I can act now. It kind of seems a bit kind of silly to say, but so I'm inviting you to access. I'm inviting you to access now.
Okay.
So in a sense, for me, the only subject is this, because I can't find very much beyond this. So I'm inviting you to access now as the place where the work happens. So we actually, I'm not teaching you anything because I have nothing to teach you, because now is accessible equally to both of us. And anything I might have prepared to teach previously is by definition irrelevant, because if I prepared it yesterday or a week ago or a year ago, then I didn't have this moment accessible to me then. So there's nothing whatever I can teach. But what I'm inviting you to do, and seems to be the nature of this kind of work, is to access this now as the beginning of getting used to living more relevantly. And so if something difficult or bad is happening now, so then it's very real. But if it's not, then there's no need to deal with it, you see. There's an old Buddhist story about that, actually. Buddhist monks don't have anything to do with women, so that's all monks, I suppose. So there were two friends, I think a teacher and a student maybe. They were walking along and they came to a river, and there was a young woman there trying to find how to get across the river. And they looked at each other worried, and then the teacher, without a word, just picked up the girl, put her on his shoulders, went across the river, put her down, they went on. So the student got very, very angry with him, very upset, and he didn't talk to him for 2 days. And then as they were going up some hill, he finally opened his mouth and said, "How could you do such a thing?" He said, "You went against all your vows and all the precepts and all the whatever, all the rules, and you picked up a girl, put her on your shoulders. What kind of deal is that?" Teacher said, "Well, maybe I did, but I put her down the other side. You're still carrying her."
Got it. Yes.
So
that's exactly it.
So
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm inviting you to a party now. It's the only party that I'm aware of that's really happening. The future parties may or may not happen. The past parties, they've gone. This party right now, it's a wonderful party, this moment of intimacy, human intimacy, it's here that I can feel. And I don't have a name for it, and it changes each moment.
If I came to you, if I sat down here and said, right now, I'm feeling irritable inside me.
Are you?
No.
Oh.
But okay. I'm using hypothetically.
So we're now accessing a story, right?
A story. I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
So I
like stories.
So I would say to you, I feel irritable. You and I would then talk about that irritability.
I have no idea.
Or maybe, my pain.
Maybe I would faint. Maybe I would die. Maybe I would, make some coffee. Okay. Maybe I would shout at you. Maybe I would smile. I have no idea, because until it happens, I don't know how I would respond. I have many ideas of what nice guy I am and how I'd respond and be very kind and everything. But the truth is, maybe I'd have a terrible stomach pain and I would just be irritable to you all the time, and you wouldn't understand what was going on, you see, and you'd just give up. I mean, who knows what would happen?
Okay.
You see, so what would happen? So we've left reality. That's why I said I wasn't really being humorous. I said, so now we're entering a story, and you said yes. Now that's fine. Stories are wonderful stuff, creative. But it seems to me very important to know when we're involved in the story and when we're involved in reality, because we don't need to deal with the story, but it's probably worth dealing with reality. And
reality is me sitting here, you're sitting there.
No, that's another story. That's a story about the reality, maybe.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that reality is everything. Everything is real, apart from what you and I think. That's creative. So our thoughts create things. All of human creation, religions and literature and symphonies and science, it's all thought creations. There's also what's happening. So I'm inviting you to access reality in addition. It's something that we often don't notice.
How? How? I'm asking how.
There isn't any how. I mean, you're already in it. The only thing that's left is to recognize that this is what's happening and nothing else is happening. So can you sense the cushion behind your back?
Yes.
Supporting you, maybe slightly warm already.
Yes.
And the clothes on you, and,
yes.
and the sort of feeling of textiles touching you.
Right.
And the seat under you, and your the weight of your body on it, and the air going in and out, and thoughts coming and going, and sensations and emotions as they sort of shift and move and change. So this is it.
And
I don't really have any more than that.
That's it? We're going to sit here and watch and have the camera.
Now you're in the story again, you see, about what we might do. So what we might do is fine as a story. So I'm not ruling it out in any way. I'm just suggesting that it seems to me very important to distinguish between the stories and...
What I'm not getting is how do I incorporate your teachings into my daily life?
Well, that's very easy. That's the easiest thing. By realizing that I'm not teaching anything, And so there's nothing to incorporate. So you're official, they give you a certificate if you want. You're free of the need for incorporation. How about that? So you can forget about it. There's nothing to incorporate. This is happening now. What can you possibly incorporate? It's already gone. Now's a new now. What is it to incorporate? Can you find anything to incorporate, whatever?
I guess what I'm getting at, we're sitting here in front of a camera or cameras, and there's a point to what we're doing.
Is there?
You don't think
is there in reality, or is that part of yet another story?
Well, it's a project. Let's say it's a project.
Well, how do we decide? For example, suppose we want to establish as a fact if there's a point to this or there isn't a point to this. What criteria can we use to decide if there is a point or there isn't a point? If we start from a neutral scientific place, or if there's a project or if there isn't a project. You see, it's difficult for me to come to a conclusion about that, a factual conclusion, because whether there's a point or not a point, or both or neither, whether there's a project or not, in all those cases, we're still sitting here and we're doing the same things. So I can't use reality to distinguish between any of these. These are commentaries about. And like all imaginative and creative processes, they're unlimited. We can say it's a project, we can say it's not a project. It doesn't actually change anything in reality. It's just the way we relate to it, our thoughts about it. So is it possible to distinguish between them so that you don't get worried about, is this a project? Well, is it the right project? Or are we doing it right? You see, within a moment, we're totally neurotic. But when we realize this project is only an idea, a concept, you leave it to the philosophers.
But there's actual physical work involved.
Is there?
Well, you're going
breathing.
to... Yes, I'm breathing. You're going... There's going to be a result out of this, or at least...
Sure, we'll both die. I mean, what is the result? In 10 minutes, in an hour?
What are we doing?
Exactly.
Except...
That's wonderful. That's usually that question is a sign that somebody's beginning to touch reality.
Oh.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
Exactly.
But though my mind is saying I need some sort of answer.
Yeah. Within the stories there are plenty of answers. Within reality, I don't know what's happening. Because if I knew, that would be a thought. And reality isn't constructed from ideas and thoughts and concepts. It just is. That's none of these. It's not a concept, it's not an idea, it's not a story, it's not an opinion, it's not a belief. It's just... So it has to be unknown. Because if it's known, then it's knowledge, thoughts. And reality doesn't seem to be constructed from thoughts, it just is. So then this is a place where we can rest, where for me, this what I call the unconditioned mind, sometimes the Buddhists call it emptiness, nirvana, enlightenment, all kinds of names. The names don't matter. I simply call it, tend to call it the unconditioned mind, where we see reality directly. And we're left with only facts, we're left with the world without all the fabric of ideas around it, with, the sort of, the raw this. And there is no neurosis. There are no problems other than if your stomach hurts, it hurts. If you're hungry, like the Zen people say, if you're hungry, eat. If you're tired, sleep. But there's nothing beyond that. There's nothing like, I'm hungry, I should have brought some sandwiches. What an idiot I am. That's just because the cat disturbed me. I shouldn't allow it. I should put the cat out last night. Before you know what's happened, you're totally neurotic.
Right.
But either way, you're hungry.
Right.
The best thing is, have a look for somewhere to eat. If there isn't anywhere, get used to the fact you're going to be hungry till you get to your hotel or whatever. You see what I mean?
So what I think you're saying is just live in the moment.
Well, you're already doing that.
Yes, but...
So you don't need to do anything special about that, do you? Do you understand the difference between stories and what's really happening?
I really think I understand.
That's all.
The story part, the words part. What I'm not understanding is, so we could basically just sit here and look at each other, and or not, and that would be it.
I don't know what would be it. Whatever happens is it.
So whatever's happening, we're sitting here. There's a camera filming us. We're sitting here. What should we talk about?
Whatever seems to me that's most important. So is there anything special that we need to do now, or is this okay?
It is okay. But I also look at it as coming here, talking to you, learning from you, and understanding how to, for me, live in the moment. And I use the word mindful because that seems to be what all the books, what all the self-help books, the word they use is being mindful. And it's it's work. It's not an easy daily activity, because I think my thoughts are just, they take over. I feel like my brain is in charge, and I don't want it to be.
That's a great story.
Thank you. I'm going to write a book about it.
So, is there anything we need to do about that now?
Just, I would, I'm losing my voice because I was sick last week. Talk about what you talked about in your retreat.
You want me to get involved in stories too? That's okay.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily that I want you to be involved in stories. Okay. I want you to.
Do you need anything right now, Michal? Is there anything special you need? Or at the moment, it's also possible you don't need anything special now, but you maybe in the future, in 1 moment or in 10 minutes, you'll need something. So when I say do you need anything, it doesn't rule out possibility that you will need something soon. I'm just asking you now, is there anything we need to do now? Because I don't have any access to what happened 10 minutes ago. I have access to memories now, but not to the actual things that happened. They're not there. I don't have any access to what will happen in 10 minutes. I have no idea. I don't know if I'm going to be alive, or if this is maybe my last breath. Now, as far as I know, I'm reasonably healthy. So, I hope this conversation is going to end less dramatically than that. Mm-hmm. You say, well, it's an interesting interview, and Jonathan, died in the middle of it. That could be an interesting YouTube thing, But I mean, other than that, so I don't have access to what happened. Mm-hmm. Not actually, not the concrete level. To memories, yes. I don't have access to what's going to happen. It's a contradiction in terms. I have access maybe to expectations, fears, hopes, thoughts about, plans, but mm-hmm. they're all mental activities going on now. Mm-hmm. But what will actually happen, I have to wait and see. And I don't even know if this is not my last breath. Mm-hmm. In which case, if it is, then all the rest is somebody else's problem. So I'm asking you if there's anything we need to do now. Not as a kind of trick, mm-hmm. but because, for me at least, you don't necessarily agree. There isn't much, I can't really find much, or maybe even anything beyond that.
But isn't also our interaction, it could be a social interaction, it could be, meeting on the street, but it could also be a learning situation.
But we're not on the street now, we're sitting here.
So sitting here and learning, my learning.
Okay, so it's not clear. Are you asking me something? Or
I'm
not?
asking you, what I need now is for you to help me understand this concept of simplicity, simple meditation.
But I'm not offering you a concept.
Talk to me about Jonathan, what you just described. Use words to let me know what your studies have accomplished, what your way of looking at the world is. In words.
Wow, sounds big things.
Big things.
Is there any particular point you'd like to start with? Because that's so huge. We need about 10 years for that.
Well, just start anywhere.
What do we need? Is there anything we need now? If, for example, let's suppose, again, this is my story now, this really is our last moment. Maybe you and I, maybe in 1 minute's time, that's it. We're both going to be dead. You're going to have to call ambulances or whatever, right? Now, if we would look at it that way, what's the most important thing we could do right now? What's the most, if I don't know if I have a future or not, if maybe this body is about to, decide it doesn't want me to live in it anymore, so it's going to stop functioning this moment. Is there anything I like to do in my last moment? I'm saying that because often that focuses the idea of death, not as some frightening future event, but right now. Often it focuses you very, very sharply on now, because there isn't really a future in sense of something that exists now. What happens, happens, and what will happen. But I'm concerned with what happens now because this may be my only opportunity to, as it were, get involved with it. I can't get involved with the future because I have to wait for that. I can't get involved with the past because they're only memories. Is there anything we need to do now? If we would like to focus our energies, our valuable and very limited resources and energies, and personalities and intelligence, very, very limited. They're there, but they're small relatively. If we would like to create as much benefit as possible now, reduce suffering as much as possible now, is there anything particular we need to be doing now? If so, I think it's probably a good idea to do it. I'm not aware of anything. It's just hypothetical for me because I'm reasonably comfortable, maybe feeling a little bit warm. But apart from that, and it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
And I'm enjoying this, but I can feel that enjoyment, and it's good to meet you, and I'm very glad we met. And that feeling of pleasure is there, and I'm reasonably comfortable physically. And I'm not sure I can go a lot beyond that in reality. In terms of ideas, stories, obviously we can both create a lot. You're probably better at it than me, but so
I'm only better at it than you because I haven't. I think your way of being is a lot, as you say, a lot simpler than mine. I haven't. Again, I have this difficulty with the words I'm using because I'm going to describe them now as my stories. I'm going to use that as the quote because it seems to me that that's what I'm still in that phase where I feel like I have a lot of stories. When we talk, I feel like your way of being is simpler and in the moment, and you understand reality a lot better than I understand reality. So what I feel, my story is that I want to talk more about that reality and how to achieve it.
Well, from my point of view, one of the, or maybe the source, I'm not sure, of the natural calm and happiness that seem to emanate from this place that I call the unconditioned mind, or reality, is that I don't find anything to understand because there's no conceptual context. It just is. So all I'm suggesting is differentiating, distinguishing as clearly as possible between reality, what's happening on the one hand, and the stories on the other, just that we don't confuse them, so that we don't get upset by things that happen in the stories. What might happen, what should have happened, is this right, is it wrong? That ceases to upset me. So I'm only left with what's really happening. Now the stories are there, but my feeling is I'm aware of this huge thought process going on which is creating the stories right now. I can feel it, but I'm speaking only metaphorically. This isn't real. There's a kind of feeling, a sensation. I'm speaking from experience of this moment, of an immense space, an immense open space, in which I can see this little mind, this little Jonathan mind, creating its own movies and stories, and sometimes painful, sometimes happy, but but it's happening as a sort of tiny activity within the immense space of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, not meaning that nothing's happening, everything's happening, but it doesn't have a particular defined framework or word that I can attach to it. It's too fluid, it's moving, it doesn't have any form. I can't find any precedent for exactly this. This moment, for example, this moment of intimacy between us now, it's possible in the whole history of the universe, according to physicists, I think 13.4 or 13.5 billion years. Probably physicists will be jumping on me because I may not have got it, but it's approximately something like that. And maybe this moment never occurred previously. There's too much to get right,
Mm-hmm.
see, which is an amazing thought. This is the first time this happened. Even if it happened before, then this is the second time it's influenced by the first time. So there is actually no precedent for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no words to describe it, because words always come from a precedent, because we both understand the meaning of words. So that's knowledge, that's the past. But right now, this is here. And in reality, I don't have anything really maybe beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very easy. So this whole effort of understanding isn't there. I'm suggesting that in reality there is nothing to understand, because there's no conceptual framework. There's just what is. So understanding seems to be not an appropriate tool to access reality. The moment I'm understanding is a creative process. We talk about understanding as if it was, I understand something, as if it was objective, I'm doing some object of understanding on something that exists.
Mm-hmm.
But actually it seems to me that understanding is a more creative process. Understanding means a creation, thoughts creating a model.
Mm-hmm.
With some words, with some ideas, with some structure. But that's a second best, that's a second cousin to the reality. This is this, whether I understand it or not. I think in Zen they have this saying, if you understand, things are as they are. If you don't understand, things are still as they are.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding then becomes an unnecessary and possibly not very helpful tool in accessing reality. But the feeling that you need to turn it into something which is definable and understandable, that is one of the things that prevents us accessing reality.
Right. I think I understand some of it. It's pretty complicated.
Well, I apologize then. It's actually, the feeling is very simple. That maybe I'm getting overwordy and trying to access it for
you're
you.
not. I don't think so. I still feel I'm the student and you're the teacher.
That's itself a conceptual framework, isn't it?
Right. How do I get away from that conceptual framework?
You don't have to. It doesn't exist. It's an idea.
You're telling me it doesn't exist.
Or it does exist. How do we find out if it really exists or not? You see, I said it doesn't exist, which you're quite right. You got me. That's very good. You got me, because I was expressing an opinion without realizing. I thought I was stating a fact, but I wasn't. I was expressing an opinion. That's the point. So how do we decide at a factual level, at a real level, if it is or it isn't? Is there any way of establishing that, or does it just stay as opinions?
It stays as opinions.
So what happens if we just leave the opinions and they float by, expressions of thoughts, and we just watch them happen? This, what you call mindfulness, is not ultimately different from that.
Right.
So this is what's happening now. I don't need to understand it. I mean, this is this.
Uh-huh.
Now it's gone already, so it went before I could even begin to think about understanding it, creating an image of it in my mind.
Right. My difficulty is, in my mind, it's still there. I haven't put it aside. You're suggesting that would be the unconditional mind, so to speak. What I'm saying is, I'm sitting here, I'm still feeling I'm the student, you're the teacher.
Sure.
That's right now my reality. And in my mind, when there's a student and a teacher, the teacher is revealing the knowledge that they've gained over the
absolutely.
years.
Except that that's a conceptual framework, isn't it?
Very
What
much
happens if
so.
you don't need to put it aside because there's nothing to put aside? You see, if you want to put your watch aside, you can take it off and put it to the side. It's possible. I can put my watch to the side.
Right.
I can't put a conceptual framework to the side because I can't get hold of it. There's nothing there. It's sort of smoke and mirrors, isn't it? So you don't need to put it to the side. All I'm inviting you to do is to access reality, which means the awareness that it is a conceptual framework. And then you watch the thoughts that create these ideas, these constructs. So the constructs appear, it's a bit like a sort of holographic image. They appear there, but when you try and access them, there's nothing there. But the watch, I can take my watch off, you see, I can do this, and I can put it here. I can't do that with a conceptual framework because it isn't there. Not in reality. As thoughts it is. So is it possible to see the difference so that you stop being troubled by things that are not happening? See, that's actually more pleasant, putting my watch here, because my wrist is a little bit cooler, so that's a pleasant feeling.
Okay.
So I've gained on that slightly. But I can't do that with a conceptual framework because there's nothing there. Is it clear the difference between this and a conceptual framework?
Yes.
You see, whether this is a watch or it isn't a watch, it's the same thing. My wrist is still cooler either way.
Right.
So are we talking about anything? This discussion is very pleasant, but I'm just asking you from a point of view of accuracy. Are we actually discussing anything real, or are we simply involved in an exchange, maybe a very pleasant one, of ideas? I'm suggesting that it's important to distinguish between them so that you don't get upset by your ideas. For example, if you see yourself as a student and me a teacher, and you don't feel you're getting anything from me, so then you get upset because you think you're getting a bad deal. But actually there's nothing you can get from me. And do you really know how much I'm learning from you or not? Are you aware of that or not?
I'm not aware of that.
So for me it's very, very unclear who's the teacher and who's the student, because I suspect that both our bodies are learning things from this conversation. But I can't find a teacher and I can't find a student.
Well, you just used the word absorbing, and it took me right back to how we started this conversation, which was that I said the irritability, I feel my body is absorbing. So there is that idea that we absorb, that it changes us, that for me anyway, it stays with me. I don't think that kind of irritability stays with you. And so my agreeing to do this has to do with getting to a place where my body doesn't feel, or my body is able to take that irritability, put it aside, as you say, and be in the moment.
That's not what I'm offering you.
No.
And maybe that's very important, but I'm not offering you that. What I'm suggesting is that right now I understand, if it's still true, that you don't feel any excessive irritability at this moment. This is a relatively peaceful moment. Is that still approximately true?
Well, I'm kind of getting a little irritated, not at you necessarily, but that I feel the conversation, my brain, it is complex. And that kind of, I'm not understanding all of it, I'm understanding some of it, so it's making me a little bit uncomfortable.
What happens if I suggest to you that in this work, as I see it, I can't find anything that is understandable or non-understandable?
Yeah, those are words that are a little complicated for my brain right now. I'm willing to...
Do you feel the cushion behind you?
Yes.
There's not very much understanding involved in that. It's a sensation, right?
Right.
Can you feel the air going in and out? That's equally a sensation, isn't it?
Yes.
And You hear the sounds, the ambient, the background sounds. You're aware of whatever feeling there is about what's going on between us. Complex feelings, you can't really maybe get a word for it, but it's there. This sort of human interaction going on. But what's happening at this moment is changing each moment. So I'm inviting you to access this as a way of beginning to get used to, not learn how to live well, because learning always involves concepts. I don't find that's much help. But of actually practicing living well now, by focusing on what's real, or by identifying what's unreal, which eventually gets you to the same point. So that anything we talk about is unreal, because we can only exchange concepts. But everything's happening. So I'm inviting you to this party now.
That's good, because you made me aware of the cushion and my breathing, which I wasn't aware of before you used those words. So that helps me understand.
What I'm inviting you to is a place where you're aware also of the awareness, or non-awareness, as it comes and goes. That's also not under our control.
I know I feel better when I pay attention to the cushion behind me, or my breathing, or the way the texture, the fabric feels, or...
Now we're in the story again, right?
Right. We're definitely in the story I'm describing to you.
Right now, so the story's here.
Yes.
The story, the telling of the story is part of what's happening now.
Right.
So I'm inviting you to access now. With or without the story as it happens, or it doesn't happen moment by moment. This. Over and over again. What I find is that each time we access this moment, this, then somehow, and don't ask me how, because I don't understand anything about neurology and all this stuff, but it seems that something in our body, our brain, our mind, whatever you call it, gets a little bit more familiar with this place, which doesn't have a name because it's changing too fast. But it's this. It's very, very sharp in the sense of real and tangible. It's maybe the only tangible thing. All the sort of sum total of what I call my experience at this moment. Every time that I access it, it seems to become a slightly deeper habit. So what I'm offering you, if anything, is not an understanding, because you have plenty of those anyway, and I don't find they necessarily help to find a sort of deep peace, but rather the awareness of what's going on now. And I don't have a word for that, because between the beginning and the end, the sentence has changed 1,000 times. There's this and this. This is gone, but now there's a new this. And so I get used to it. So this work is done, as far as I've been able to find out, by simply touching it over and over and over again, and somehow your body begins to get familiar with it, until, like a homing pigeon, you find you sort of naturally come back to this place of total rest and peace and happiness, in the sense that there's nothing there that can disturb you. So I'm talking about a peace which is so deep, and a calm which is so deep, that it's actually independent of whether there's peace and calm or not. Just this. So the work for me is introducing you, or pointing out over and over again this, from the understanding maybe that in reality, if I'm really, really rigorous about it, I'm not sure I can find anything real beyond that. Whether this is real or not, I leave to the philosophers. But certainly all the rest seems to be either memories or opinions or expectations of one sort or another.
Well, I know this is, okay. That makes sense to me. I know that there is no sense in it, but I feel like we've just come full circle, and we've reached a point where, for me, however I'm built or made up or whatever my brain is, my thoughts, what you just described is what I needed to hear. The repetition over and over and over again absolutely works for me. The reminder, whether I remind myself or you remind me or my grandkids remind me, that I need to feel the pillow behind me and my breathing. And for me, I describe it as a story of just being in the moment. How does that sound to you?
Sounds wonderful.
Okay.